You're listening to The Collected Podcast, bringing you inspiration and resources to help you discover and live from your truest self. Follow along on social media at Collected Workshops, and be sure to visit thecollectedpodcast.com for show notes and to learn more. The Collected Podcast is brought to you by the Gebhardt Schleep Group at Baird Financial, delivering personalized financial advice that helps clients reach their long-term goals. Visit gebhardtschleepgroup.com or see our show notes for links and to learn more.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9 of The Collected Podcast. I'm Jess Biondo.
I'm Michaela Hooper.
And I'm Tia McNelly.
This week, we have a really powerful interview by a woman named Emily Ratliff, and she is the founder of Claire's Army, which she's going to share all about with you. And just everything she says is so powerful, so we would just want to get right into it because this one does go a little bit long, but it is worth every minute. Hey, Emily, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we are so excited. I have been all over your website for your nonprofit, Claire's Army, and I just can't wait to hear more about what you do and the heart behind it and how you really started this.
You got it. I'm flattered and honored that we're connected, and any chance I have to kind of share Claire's story and our family story and what we're doing is a blessing, I feel.
We're grateful that you're here. Yeah.
So a little bit about Claire's Army, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And how we got started. So, I'll probably talk a little more about my family in a few minutes, but Claire's Army is a nonprofit. It's a charity organization that we officially launched in the fall of 2013 in memory of our daughter, Claire Ratliff, who she was diagnosed with stage 4 high-risk neuroblastoma in May of 2011. And she was in treatment for only 9 months. We did not even really get through her treatment plan as her tumor and cancer was so aggressive. And she passed away at the tender age of just over 2 years and 4 months in January of 2012. And so she is really the person behind this, really still leading us. When she was diagnosed, our family just received abundant and overwhelming support. I mean, I've used those words so many times to try and describe how people reached out and supported our family. And really, every single time I look back in hindsight, I'm just still so thankful for the ways that people took action and supported our family. And I can tell you that the first 1.5 2 years of our grief, I couldn't name a single blessing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, sure.
Because you're just you're still in shock. You are just overcome with all the different phases of grief, and it's not a linear thing. They come out of nowhere, all the different phases, and some of them come back, and you're kind of swimming in and out of those phases at all times. But as I look back, and even as we did realize while we were in treatment, because we could look and see the halls of patients who didn't have family stopping by to check on them, or who didn't have friends and strangers who started a meal train, or who didn't have an employer who graciously said, you will not lose your job, you'll keep your benefits, and to my husband, you will not lose your job and you will not have to travel, even though that's a core part of your job. We realized we were kind of the anomaly with people that just that really overextended on our behalf. And at the time, we had no clue what the plan was. And I think this is true of all cancer, but specifically with children, you're given kind of a prognosis and a plan, but every day is different, and that plan can change at any moment. And while we had a treatment plan and kind of followed it, we completely went off the roadmap after a few months. And even when we were told on January 5th of 2012 that her tumor and her cancer had kind of just morphed and changed path, and while we thought we were going to the next phase of treatment, we learned that she probably had less than a year. We had 2 weeks.
Wow.
And the doctors, I'll never forget one of her oncologists telling me that sometimes I feel like I could better predict a lightning strike than how this disease will change and take a child. And so in hindsight, we realized that, all these people and our God put them in our lives so that we could really be fully present with Claire through every moment of her treatment, in the hospital, on the road, at home, at clinic visits. It just really allowed us to focus and be with her, because we didn't know that at 9 months she wouldn't even be here. And neither one of us can still fathom that if we had to, Kevin traveled 20 plus weekends a year, and I managed multiple departments at the Y and had staff and events and all kinds of things to supervise, that I can't imagine where we would be if I had missed out on all of those moments with her and she was gone. And so while that took years to really be able to say out loud, I'm thankful, because we do have memories, and I don't know where we would be if we had to, be at work and had other people caring for her, or had really had to divide our time as a family.
Wow.
So that's kind of a really, really long-winded answer to start it out. But essentially what we are trying to do with Claire's Army is give others the army that they may not have. We did a lot of counseling, and we still do at Kindermorn, a nonprofit here in Charlotte, which specifically focuses on parents who've lost children and also children who've lost parents. And we learned that, there's so many folks who come to Charlotte to work, and all of a sudden their child is diagnosed, and, they don't have all this extended family here, and they don't have PTO and all these other benefits in place. And so, we just assumed we were like everyone, that, the halls are going to be filled with all your friends and family and doing all these things for you. And that's just not the case. And so we really took about, a year and a half to kind of just grieve and spend time in counseling and focus on our marriage and just trying to be whole again. And I'll admit, during that time, church and faith just looked a whole lot of different. We were very active members at Forest Hill Church, and we're part of a life group, which is a huge support system we had during treatment. But every time that I tried to go back to church, we were minutes in, and I would just run out crying. And the last thing I want to do is make a scene at our church and make it not be about what it should be about. And so I stayed in touch with one of my counselors from Forest Hill, and David Chadwick is still very close to their family. And they just kept saying, you know what, like you will find, whether it's a different church, but you need to make sure you keep truth in front of you, because it is going to be so easy to fall prey to believing something different with what you've been through, especially after, the multitude of people we had praying for Claire, the multitude of people that followed us through Caring Bridge from all over the world we could see, and people praying specific prayers and, reaching out, and, you think, oh my God, how could anything happen? How could anything awful happen? We've got prayers and David Chadwick and Forest Hill and the body of this church on our side. Like, there's no way God would let anything happen to this sweet 2-year-old child, but that wasn't what happened. And so I wrestled so hard with, the old saying, like, how could a good God do this? And how could he, why didn't we get a miracle? And so, for many months, we just continued to stay in touch with our counselors in Forest Hill and with Kindermorn, and just, like I said, focused on our marriage and each other, and really just getting up every day and functioning as humans again. And through that process, we realized that, we have this army of people that helped us, and how can we re-engage them? Because they were ready to do something else. Like, they wanted to do so much more for our family. So we thought, how can we empower these folks in our community to basically create an official army for all these, pediatric oncology families here in Charlotte? And so that's kind of how it started as just really doing unto others what folks did for us. We had people who, they brought us, meals. We had dinners from home. We had dinners from restaurants that were brought to us, anywhere between 4 to 5 nights a week, whether we were in the hospital or whether we were at home, which removed a huge burden. I mean, who wouldn't love to just have a hot free meal brought to them every night,
Right.
regardless of being in the hospital? And that really allowed us to focus on Claire and have some options for dinner as well. And then we had folks, especially from the Y, they started like this giant gift card tree, and it was really made up of gift cards for like gas and grocery and restaurants, because, when all of a sudden you're traveling for treatment or you're going to the grocery store more than you had originally planned, that affects your budget. And so those really alleviated some financial stressors. And then the other thing that, again, we were lucky that we had employers that were so supportive, but I thought, what if we had lost our jobs? How do we pay our mortgage? Like, how are we paying, like, are we going to sell our condo and move in with my parents? And still, like, who's, and so, and we met families that had that happen. We met families whose dad lost their job and they were the sole provider.
Yeah.
And so all this was just ringing true. And we thought, gosh, how can we really just mobilize this army? And so that was really the concept behind it. And really, the person behind it was Claire, because she was always so concerned about everyone else. I mean, even as a 2-year-old, we'd be in the room and she knew how much I loved my coffee, but I'd make it in the morning in the hospital, and then someone would come in and have a conversation, and she would be like, Mommy, drink your coffee. And when people brought a meal, she'd be engrossed in watching a movie or something, but she'd look over and say, Mommy, you need to eat dinner. Eat your dinner. And she would even see when, and I reference Miss Pat all the time, but she was the primary person from environmental services at the hospital who would come in and clean our room, just mop the floors and clean the bathrooms at night on the peds floor. And she loved Miss Pat, and granted, Claire, some days she couldn't get out of her crib, but she would offer to this, 50-year-old plus woman, she would say, I want to help you, Miss Pat. I want to help you clean the toilets. Because she knew Miss Pat did not like the toilets. That was her least favorite thing. And I'm thinking, Claire's watched me clean, but we've never talked about this. So she just had this natural bend to just this empathy, and she could look at you, and a stranger could come in the room and she could tell something was wrong, and she'd say, what's wrong with you? And some of those people would look at her like, I don't understand why you're asking me this. I'm like, no, she's serious. She wants to know if you're okay. And so we just kind of paired those two ideas together, just unconditional love and doing unto others. And we said, how can we form this army? And it started very slowly, and we wanted to start it where Claire was treated and really help those families at Hemby Children's. And it's grown from there.
It's incredible. Wow.
So
Emily.
we have multiple programs running at both hospitals. I could keep going on and on. I don't know how much you want me to talk about, but that's kind of the foundation of it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And we will definitely link to that so that people can learn as much as they possibly can online and get in touch with you as well.
Sure.
I do have a question though. I keep thinking about how kind of like sneaky grief can be. Mm-hmm. And even after all these years and, turning a rotten bunch of lemons into something kind of like lemonade that you can bless people with, how do you handle it? How do you tend to your heart, mind, body, and spirit when grief decides it wants to show up?
That's such a weird question. I'll answer it it'll be all over the place because like you said, it changes, it's changed from year to year. So when Claire died, we didn't have any other children at the time. And so I know parents who had surviving siblings and they lost their child and some that didn't. And there's not one better option, right? But it was so still and so quiet. We went from being like super parents to not parents. Like not just doing the basic parenting or just being a good, but we went from being like, pseudo doctors, pseudo nurses, onto appointments, following a treatment plan, traveling, making sure she had everything she needs, and it didn't even happen slowly. Like she was, the night she passed away, she was quote fine, and then she wasn't. So it's like it was it was a drastic, I mean, on January 16th, we're in the hospital and it's, functioning like normal and what's the next thing to do. And January 17th at 2:30, we're driving home. My parents are driving us to our empty house.
Oh, gosh.
And so the grief has just looked so different. How we've cared for ourselves has been so different over the years. But I mean, I would say the first year, it was just clinging to counseling at Kindermorn. I mean, it was literally a lifeline.
Yeah.
Because I thought, okay, these parents have been here. They don't have it figured either, but it was just like, can I get to the next session?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe there'll be something I can cling to, because I won't feel so alone, because you do feel so alone. And I work for the Y, and the Y, my Y family, my staff, my members were so supportive. And honestly, exercise was such a huge part of it. Like running was like my time to be with her. I don't know. I know I read this somewhere at one point, but there's something with like your hormones or your endorphins where you can't physically be like deeply sad and like have the exercise high at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's something way more scientific than what I just described, but I remember sharing that, and because I'd read it with my counseling group, and I can remember that running was like one of the only times in the beginning that I didn't cry and sob, because I could kind of experience this feeling again. It was like my time to be alone with her, and I felt like she was with me.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of that and counseling, like at first, and just having those handful of people you could talk to. Because it's just so big, and most people haven't gone through this, and doesn't mean they don't care, but it's just, I'm sorry, talking to you about losing my daughter is nothing like you losing your grandmother.
No.
So,
It's not.
so those first couple years are really hard, because I think there's a lot of people who want to be there for you. They don't know how.
Yeah.
But then being the person grieving, it's also so hard, because you're like, I don't want to make this person feel bad by sharing this darkness.
Yeah.
And so then it's just like navigating these different waves of thoughts and feelings, when you also learn in Kindermorn, like you can't worry about those other people and like how they feel at that moment. You just can't. You don't have enough in you to even process that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I remember my counselor kind of explained one time that grief is almost like, that processor that's in the back of your computer that none of us see, but we know it's running, and it's always running. Like it never stops. It's always going. And like, that's grief. It's always there. It never stops. It's going to be with you till the day you leave this place.
Right.
And so some days it'll be pulling more of you, and some days it'll be pulling less. And so you just have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
So I'd say just having very special people in our lives who God placed here. And interestingly, those first couple of years, a lot of them are Claire's nurses.
Wow.
We became very close with a handful of them, and they, especially after she died, really became like our closest friends, because they knew what we'd been through.
Yeah.
And honestly, what's crazy is they were the only ones who got to experience Claire and kind of grow up with her for that 9 months.
Yeah.
Our life stopped. Our toddler life with our life group, seeing our friends, that ended when she was diagnosed, because she couldn't do those things.
Yeah.
So no more like, playing with the neighbor across the street or whatever. And so her best friends became our providers and our nurses and child life specialists. So we had a handful who just happened to live close by, wouldn't even know it at the time. And they stopped in, they had dinner. One of them, Jessie, she was probably at our house 3 out of 5 nights of the week.
Wow.
Either having dinner, just sitting with us, just watching a movie, just being with us. And so, that was another phase where it was just clinging on to those relationships of people who saw you go through what you went through, and who really knew Claire like no one else did.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part of our healing, and just kind of getting to that next step. And then along the way, we got pregnant with my daughter, Sydney, who's 6 now. And that was probably the first time I felt joy again. after losing Claire. So it took a few years, obviously, but I remember the moment she was born, like it rushed over me, and I was so thankful to God because I didn't know I could feel that again.
Wow.
I had no idea I could feel that again. And it was instant,
Yeah.
And so that was such a like a beacon of hope. Not that it should be on this so much pressure on this child, but it just it was just such a physical and tangible reminder of hope and of grace and of just because you can't even think about the future after what we've been through. And so her coming into this world, Sydney, really just it changed things, but at the same time it brought a whole new, like you said, it was so sneaky because here this beautiful child is being born and she's never going to know her sister.
Right.
And her sister, who would have been 4 years old when she was born, wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so then there's all those thoughts. And I mean, rabbit hole I could go down. But but it's just like you said, it just evolves. That's the only way to describe it. It just evolves day to day. And I remember other parents and counselors saying that, you'll learn that the grief's always there, but you'll have like your ups and downs will be different. Some of your ups will be longer and some of your downs will be shorter. You'll learn kind of little, I hate to use the word trigger, but just things to kind of, that will trigger you and just to kind of, be more careful around certain times of the year, certain milestones, whatnot. But I think such a huge part of healing was also just being at the hospital. I actually left my job at the Y in the spring of 2013, so just a little over a year after Claire died, because I thought, I want to change, and all I could think about was being in the hospital. And I thought I was going to be a nurse, so I applied to go back to school, and that's when I found I was pregnant with Sydney, and I thought, okay, there's no way I could have a newborn. I know people do it every day, but I knew I couldn't mentally and go back to school. But there happened to be an opening for a nurse assistant on the same floor where Claire was treated, and it was exactly what I needed and where God wanted me, because it was I was able to take a course over a number of weeks and get certified and be able to do kind of minimally challenging like task work. It wasn't managing people. It wasn't looking at huge budgets and having goals, but it was so therapeutic and so rewarding to just be on the other side and to lock arms with those nurses and doctors and be on the floor and just, I felt like Claire was with me every single day. I got on that elevator and went up there.
Wow.
And other moms were like, you are nutso. Like, you are crazy. I don't ever want to go back there. And I was like, I can't explain it, but every door is open for me to be here. And so I'm going with it.
That's incredible.
So
are you still working as a nurse assistant
so that
now?
was in, so I'm not, because while I started that process and was pregnant with Sydney was when kind of the fire, really got burning more for Claire's Army. And so I worked full-time as a nurse assistant while I was pregnant, didn't have a child yet, while we were kind of launching Claire's Army. And then once Sydney was born, I stayed on and worked about 30 hours a week at the hospital while simultaneously launching Claire's Army in my free time. And so eventually,
that's cute.
Right, I know. But because of the growth and I hate to use the word success, but just because of the impact of the work that we were doing and the belief this community had in Claire's Army, it just grew to a point where it was not something I could manage part-time on the side anymore. I mean, we had 3 programs running and, multiple fundraising events and all these donors to thank and keep up with and volunteers to manage. And so it should have been a lot sooner, but in July of 2018 is when I made the transition to become full-time executive director of Claire's Army. So where I could focus all of my time on this and step away from the hospital. So I'm still sad about it. up at the hospital at both Levine and Hemby, every month, every couple of weeks really. And I talk to the nurses on the regular, and I'm like, I wish I could come back PRN and just help from time to time, but I know it's not humanly possible.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
So,
Wow.
so anyway, it's, I could not have written this path if you had asked me to 10 years ago, obviously, and had no idea that it would, that I would be where I am now.
Yeah.
And that Claire's Army would be where it is now.
Emily and her family have had to face a lot of unexpected circumstances, and some of you may be facing unexpected circumstances right now. Our health can be somewhat unpredictable, and so planning for healthcare costs is extremely important. We have learned so much from Dave Gebhardt and his associates at the Gebhardt Sleep Group of Baird Financial. He talks a lot about health spending accounts and flexible spending accounts and life insurance and protecting your family from the unexpected and figuring out how to handle the financial burden when the unforeseen comes about. And so we would encourage you to go ahead and reach out and ask your questions. What the heck is an HSA and how is it different from an FSA?
Seriously.
These are questions that we all need to understand. Why would we want to choose this health insurance over this other offering over here? These are the questions that with no obligation, you can call or email Dave with. So please go ahead and do that. Look at our show notes and get in touch with Dave. I have this burning question as we kind of wrap up. I can't believe how quickly our time flew.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I could talk forever.
But I want to know, and we didn't prep you for this, so if you need to take a second to think about it, that's fine. But what has God revealed to you about himself through this whole process? Whatever step of the way that might have happened, surely he's revealed something to you about who he is.
Oh gosh. I don't know. I mean, he's big. That sounds so lame, but he's so much bigger than we can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think about as a mom and as someone who's trying to do a gazillion things and feels like they don't do any of them well, I think about how overwhelmed I get, and then I think, oh my gosh, he's got everyone in his hands.
Yeah.
Think about all the lists that we make to keep up with everything we need to do and think about and read and tasks and grocery lists. And it's and he's got it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while I don't know if I'll get the chance to ask him, hopefully in heaven, why everything went that way it did with Claire, but he's been with us the whole time, and he showed himself through Claire. I mean, I think that's one of the things that was so hard is you think, gosh, when someone like her, who is 2, who is really, even though, yes, she sinned as a toddler in some way, but who truly loved people unconditionally and who had the biggest heart and who had faith like a child, why would you not want her here? It's just it's still just so puzzling to me, but
it's confusing.
I'll never forget this very good friend of mine from the Y. He was always a close friend and who came to work out, and we always talked about family stuff, and he always had such a strong faith. And I remember when Claire was diagnosed, he was one of the first people to make contact to remind me of our faith and remind me to stay true to it. And he was the very first person I saw at her service. We had hundreds and hundreds of people. He was the first person there. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the first people to show up when I came back to work to say, I'm here for you. And he was always so jovial and happy. And I'll never forget when they were running on the track at the Y. And he said, Emily, I know this is not what you want to think about, but you have to realize all of the people that have come to Christ and who are now learning about Christ and Christianity and heaven and what it means to believe because of her and your family.
Wow.
And it made me mad at first because I'm like, well, I want her here. Like, I don't care about all those people. But when I think, gosh, I mean, to bring 1, 2, 3 more people into the faith so that, they will know him and know his kingdom. And I think that's part of her story, part of our story. It's kind of big.
Yeah. That is big.
And so I don't know if that really answers what he's revealed, but I do know that he's in this every step of the way.
That's right.
The night that the afternoon that before she passed away, one of the last things she did, she was getting ready to go down for a nap, and our nurse practitioner and doctor were in the room, and we were chatting, and I was kind of a little bit tearful, and I tried not to cry in front of her, but she could hear it in my voice, even though I was kind of in another section of the room. And she's like, "Mommy, are you upset? Why are you crying?" And I just said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm not crying. I think I just have something in my eye." And she's like, "Well, come here. Let me get it for you." And she put her little fingers in my face and her eye, and it's like she just wanted me to be okay.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing she ever did, because after that she fell asleep, and then subsequently hours and hours later she went to be with Jesus. But it's like, I'll never forget that gesture. Like, here she is, cancer everywhere in her body, doesn't get to do the things normal kids get to do, has not complained about a thing ever, and she's worried about me and something I might have in my eye. And I think like, God is worried about all of our little things, the biggest to the littlest. And
what a picture of Christ.
So
wow.
I don't know. It's just sometimes it's hard to kind of get all this stuff out because it's swirling in my head, and I've talked about it in different ways. But it's also, I thank you for the chance to be able to share this, because again, as one of my counselors, Rebecca, said, this is a trauma, and the more that I'm able to talk about it with people who really want to hear and want to listen, it helps, every single time.
Yeah. And Emily, thank you so much for being so raw with us.
Yes, thank you.
Because I know as you were talking, you were giving voice to what someone out there is feeling.
Yeah.
And I know that is such a powerful ministry to them. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for doing this. I just, you don't want anyone, I wish I could take away everyone's hurt, and, if anything that I say or that you guys are able to share that just removes one little ounce of pain or is worth it, it's, life can just be so heavy, and, he is there to lift our burdens, and he does that through others. And I know we all have that ability to lift a burden of someone else, and sometimes we don't even know we're doing it.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Definitely.
Small or big. So,
well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time to talk with us, and we'll be sure to make all the links in the show notes.
You got it. Thank you guys for the chance, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you.
What a powerful story of God's presence in the midst of something that is really hard. Something that I was so grateful that Emily spoke about is the fact that grief doesn't stop, that it's a constant process, and that God is still in the midst of it, though. And I was just so, I was feeling her, her heartache, and just the emotion that was coming forward, and her vulnerability was really, really touching, because even though it has been, I think 8 years, or no, 7 years, I believe that Claire hasn't been here, that Emily is still present to the loss, and yet she's able to see God and acknowledge that God was there and is still there. So I know for you listeners, that is somebody needed to hear that today.
Yeah, as Emily was sharing, I felt like she was giving voice to something that someone out there has been feeling and wrestling with. And if that is you, and if this brought any encouragement, please let us know, because we would love to pass that along to Emily or reach out to her directly, because to hear that her story has encouraged someone else, I know would be such a blessing to her. I know it encouraged me.
Yeah.
So just reach out to us at hello@collectedworkshops.com, and we'd love to hear part of your story as well. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Collected Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you would help spread the word. Check back here for weekly episodes dropping every Thursday. You can follow Collected on social media at Collected Workshops. The Collected Podcast is also on Patreon at patreon.com/The Collected Podcast. That's Patreon. Become a patron for as little as $1 a month to gain access to bonus content, early bird ticket sales, exclusive contests, and more. You can also find Tia at Tia McNelly Notes, Jess at Spreza Foundry, and Michaela at The Creative Space NC. Collected proudly supports and partners with Flourish Kenya, a nonprofit working to prevent and support unplanned adolescent pregnancy in rural Kenya. Learn more at flourishkenya.org. The Collected Podcast is brought to you by the Gebhardt Schleip Group at Baird Financial, delivering personalized financial advice that helps clients reach their long-term goals. Visit gebhardtschleipgroup.com or see our show notes for links and to learn more. The Collected Podcast is recorded and edited by Jacob Early. Music is by Asaf Alan.